already have my special guest in the studio with me. I have Dr. Kyra Idubo, and I'm going to be reading her profile this morning. Dr. Kyra Idubo is a UK licensed mental health practitioner and lead therapist at the Sovereign, a mental health therapy and counseling outfit based in the United Kingdom. Kyra is also the founder and executive director of Bright Chapters, a non-for-profit organization raising awareness about mental health and mental health-related stigma amongst the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities in the UK and amongst people in Nigeria. Good morning, Dr. Kyra. How are you doing?
Good morning. Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming this morning. We've already started having the conversation before we came on live, but I want us to get into it very shortly. Now, the emptiness syndrome is something that a lot of people are not very familiar with, and as we mentioned it this morning, a lot of people were asking, what's that one again?
Yeah,
what are we talking about again? But it's something that people go through, but they just don't know what it is. What is emptiness syndrome?
Okay, emptiness syndrome is that feeling of depression or low mood, that feeling of loss you experience when your kids grow up and leave the home. It could be that they've grown up and left for university. It could be like they've grown up and left the home permanently to become their own person, an adult, you know. So it's just that feeling you experience and you're by yourself, like for the first time in forever, like you're by yourself all over again. What do I do with myself? So a bit of depression sets in, a bit of anxiety sets in, a bit of worry sets in, and you start experiencing this form of loss of purpose sort of thing. Yeah, that's what empty nest syndrome is.
Is it a normal thing? Does it happen to everybody? Are you, like, is it a mental illness? What exactly is it?
Empty nest syndrome is absolutely normal. It's what you feel, right? It's your emotions, so it's normal. Does it happen to everyone? I think our level of resilience or your level of resilience as an individual is different from mine. So I cannot say it happens to everyone, but it sure happens to most people. So more women than men, especially women that are stay-at-home moms. It does happen to them. Really, they do suffer from it more than the men would do, you know. And no, it's not a mental health illness.
Okay.
It is not a clinical condition, but it could trigger a mental health condition, such as depression, loss of purpose, anxiety, all of those, and it could be really severe.
You know, you said something about it happening more in women, especially stay-at-home moms. But let's leave, I mean, it's understandable why it may happen to stay-at-home moms because, you know, they have spent all of their time catering for the family and raising the children. So when they leave, yeah, that may be problematic. But you said women. Why is that so? Because it's not everyone that is a stay-at-home mom.
No. Okay, for women, it's just natural that I'm not saying that the men do not look after the children or after the home. They do. Some of them do really even better than the women. But for women, mostly, even while you wait, well, for me, I'd use myself as an example. When I get up, when I open my eyes in the morning, the first thing I'm thinking about is what we're eating for dinner.
In the morning?
In the morning, yes. You know, that's me thinking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm thinking about 1,000 ways to prepare that dinner so it would fit everyone's taste buds. You know, so women tend to worry about such things. You know, they tend to pay more attention to the running of the home naturally. This is just natural. And us as Africans, you know how that is. You know, so that's why I say it affects women more. You know, yeah, the men can still do that, but mostly they're not as into it as the women are. So that's why I say especially women or especially stay-at-home moms. So yes, it affects women more.
So the emptiness syndrome, does it happen to parents alone? Now I'm talking single, married, whatever. Is it a parental thing?
It is a parental thing because it's just like a bird, right? You've got chicks, you've got little birdies in the nest, and you're nurturing them day in, day out. You're making sure they eat, you're making sure they're clean, you're making sure they go and come back safely, you know. So when they're no longer there, the nest is empty. So you cannot have a nest without, you cannot have chicks without literally having these children, either as a parent or as a guardian, you know, so yes.
All right,
It's
so
a
I'm going to
parent's
share a
sin.
story with you
Go on.
this morning, and I'd like to hear your insight.
All right.
All right, so this is a story on a dad
Okay.
that is sharing his experience as an empty nester.
Oh, bless.
So, just over a month ago, I lost my mind in a fog of depression after moving my son into college. Adrift and grasping for help on the internet, one of the few sources that my male pride would allow me to use. I found precious few sources to soothe my tortured soul. My gender apparently does not suffer from emptiness syndrome often. Lucky me. The build up to this moment started a year before, at the beginning of my son's senior year. Outwardly, I appeared nonchalant and would often make light-hearted jokes to deflect from the dread that was slowly growing in my heart. But life, thankfully, doesn't stop. And between school and personal activities and the life-changing pandemic, there was no shortage of distractions to help keep my mind off him leaving. Little did I know that by suppressing those feelings for so long, I was amplifying the effect that I would have once my son finally left for college. It could be because I had a great bond with my son and took him as important. I understand that women are seen as primary caregivers in the home, and my wife is really great with her children. But I personally tried my hardest to maximize the time I had available every day to be with my children. If that meant getting up at 4:30 a.m. to get into the office by 7 a.m. and leave by 3 p.m. so I could make a sports game or school events that my children were in, I considered it to be a worthwhile sacrifice to be made. Work has always been important to me, but isn't the most important thing in my life. When I was growing up, the type of men that I admired were the strong and silent types who would endure and overcome issues on their own in a dignified manner. These men rarely asked for help. I mean, why should they? When all the help they needed was their own. They were strong, after all. I began to wonder if this could be the reason why there is so little written on how emptiness syndrome affects men. Are there lots of men suffering alone in silence because of the belief that admitting their suffering makes them weak? That doing so would violate a core principle of how they view themselves. I consider myself a strong and silent type. I don't typically like to talk about my problems, and I don't feel compelled to fill the silence with jibber jabber. But here I was, an absolute wreck, wallowing in an oppressive, depressive funk of despair. What exactly is happening? This isn't how I should be feeling. Was I less of a man? So, I mean, this is a very, it's a deep thought, because, I mean, this man at the moment is in a fix. He doesn't know how he's feeling or what he's feeling or what he should do with the emotions that he's feeling, because apparently, according to what you've even just stated, women feel the emptiness syndrome more. So the men that feel it don't even come out to say a lot about it or talk about the experiences.
Yeah.
So is his feeling, is it even natural?
Of course, it's natural. He's human. He's got feelings, you know. So his feelings are totally his, and his feelings are totally valid. But when it comes to men, just like mental health challenges, they don't speak up because they feel like it makes them look weak when they speak up about their mental health challenges. So they prefer to suffer in silence instead, which isn't the way, by the way. So if you feel like you need help, you have to speak up about it, because just like you, there are 1,000 other men out there suffering from the same thing. Communication always helps, you know, so always seek help for whatever you're suffering as a man, especially as a man. I always encourage men to speak up. What he's feeling is valid. It's natural. There's nothing unnatural about that.
Now, what would you have told him if he sat with you and he was sharing his experience with you as a father that grew up the strong and silent type, because those were his role models and all of that, but now he tried as much as possible to be present in his children's life? What would you have told him?
If he sat here with me, I would take his hands, I'll look him in the eye and say, it is okay for you to feel the way you're feeling. It only means you're a human being. That's what it means. It's not strange. it's okay. And I'll thank him for coming and speaking up about it in the first place and encourage him to talk more. Because actually, venting helps. It does help.
Then what can he do now that his child is in the university, but he feels this way? He doesn't know how to move on. My dad would say that as much as you want to cradle your children for the longest of time, you should actually let them go. Let them go, let them walk their own path, let them live their life and all of that. But how can he move on from this?
First, I would say to him, and like I would say to the women as well, or anybody that suffers or is experiencing this emptiness syndrome, I would say give yourself a pat on the back, because having the kids in the first place and raising them all has led you to this place. So this has been the goal all along, just that you were not prepared enough for it. But first things first, you should be prepared anyway. So we'll talk about that
We'll talk
later.
about the preparedness, yeah.
We'll talk about that later. So I'll say, pat yourself in the back. It shows you've done very well. Your kids are independent and they've gone from home. So now, communicate with them. Discuss with them how the methods of communication, if you want, email, voice, telephone calls, video calls. You know, there are lots of ways you could do communication, visits, arrange visiting times. Then take a step back, look at yourself and see what you should do with yourself. You know, this is an opportunity for you to get to learn, for those of us that, or for those people that give wholeheartedly and to their children and have forgotten about themselves totally. So now this is the time you practice self-care. You have to come back and look at yourself. What can I do to develop myself? Or what do I enjoy doing? What hobbies should I, new hobbies to pick up, new courses to look into, new businesses to look into. So just keep yourself busy. But the most beautiful part is that you have your whole rest of your life ahead of you for yourself. So it gets to that point where they start to feel the joy and where they would actually start to enjoy being alone.
And over time, will this emotion go away?
Yes, it's in stages, isn't it? So yeah, actually, research shows that there are 3 stages of it. The emptiness syndrome, the first stage is the grief, where you're really worried about the child, you're concerned about the welfare, you feel this loss, you feel this emptiness, you don't know what to do with yourself. And that one, they say, takes about 18 to 24 months to get over. But eventually, you get over it and you start to feel relief. Then the third part is the joy. That, oh my God, the realization that, oh my God, I'm by myself. Like, I sleep whenever I want and I wake up whenever I want. I just make dinner for one person. You know, I can go out and eat dinner if I want to. I can learn to scuba dive. For
Scuba
example,
diving, okay.
Yeah, you know all those things on your bucket list. You now have the time to do it all. Learn a new skill, you know, learn a new language, you know, do all of those things that you ordinarily wouldn't have had the time to do. So you're just living your life for you now, mostly. So that is those are the 3 stages.
So if someone that is feeling having the emptiness syndrome, if they do not go through all of these stages success, and I'm assuming that, you know, for you to have gone through these stages successfully, you should have, you know, had conversations, realizations, or probably see a professional before you're able to go through these 3 steps successfully.
Yeah, so that's the importance of talk shows like this, to raise that awareness that there's help available. You do not need to suffer this alone. There are other parents that have suffered this. It would help if you go into a conversation with them. Let them tell you how they coped with it.
Before we went on a break, Ade and I were having a conversation on if parenting is a job, if it's a title, or if it's an experience. I think that parenting is both a job and a title, and in fact an experience in all. But what do you think?
I think parenting is a bit of everything. It's a job, a full-time job. It's an experience, and it's a title as well. You are a parent, that is a title. It's like you answering doctor, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like you answering Mrs., you're somebody's wife. So if you are a parent, you're somebody's mother, somebody's father, so or somebody's guidance. So yes, it's a bit of everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're correct.
Yeah, but then let's talk about parenting and planning. A lot of people don't think that they should put in planning before even having a child or before getting into parenting, because I mean, religion, culture, and
Yeah.
others say, let's be fruitful, let's multiply, and all of that. What do you think?
Yeah. I am a planner. Whatever I do, I plan. You know, I don't like surprises in that regards. So I would say before you have kids, you should plan and think to yourself, have a conversation with your partner, how many kids you guys can afford, because it would be hurtful having all these kids and watch them not have things they need to survive their everyday life. I am a supporter of, you know, planning and saying, agreeing with your partner how many kids you can have and how many kids you can afford.
Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, you know, the times whereby that conversation might be a bit tricky because people assume that, oh, you should have as many children in your courtyard as possible and all of that. I think it's beautiful if you can afford it.
Yeah.
But how important is that conversation, especially if you are married or you are with a partner, somebody that the both of you are planning to be parents together? How important is that conversation?
This may sound funny, but I have seen marriages break up or communication just go stale between partners because of for reasons like this. Because the woman wants 4 children and the man only wants 2. They've had their 2, everyone is happy, then the woman is smart enough to have another one. You know, women can do things, yeah? So she's smart enough to get pregnant for another child, but the guy is not, the husband is not mentally ready to accept another child, you know, so that sort of puts a strain in the relationship. Then you find a situation where the man is struggling to bond with this child. So I personally do not think that is fair. I think couples should agree on the number of kids they could have. Then, I know they're surprise children, you know, some children, you don't even know how they get here, but they come, you know, surprise babies, yeah. So that is a story for another day. That's on another level. But for what we can control, you should have the plan of how many kids you have in. Then after you have these kids, put a birth control plan in place as well to see that. I know that's not 100%, but that's where the surprise babies come from. But then, you know, you've done everything within your power, you know, but God just wants this one to come. So, yeah, it's important to plan.
You know, so when parents switch from roles of being parents, like, you know when the emptiness syndrome happens and all of that's when your children have left the house. Yeah. But then when they now go back to being couples, because no, there's this thing that I see with parents. When they become parents, they start having children, there's that switch that happens. There's that, for people that balance it well, I give them kudos, but a lot of people do not know how to balance that, which we'll talk about. But there is that thing that changes about them. Their focus is just the children and that's it. What then happens when the children leave and then it's just them? They have to face each other and all of that. How do they do it? I see a lot of couples break up because of this. I see awkwardness in the house. There is no conversation anymore. The relationship is now stiff and it's strained, it's hard. How do you weather through that?
Yeah, that's why it's really important that even when you're having kids, as the kids are growing up, you're doing a lot of activities with the kids, you too should take some time for yourself and do activities together, just 2 of you, you know, to just keep that fire burning, sort of, yeah? When the kids leave the house, for those people that have not managed to have that balance as a couple, I think it becomes difficult because you just don't know. The kids are not here to talk to. They're not there to. They become. I think there is now a void that needs filling, and both of you are just not enough for each other anymore. So what I would suggest in that respect is, it's just you 2 left. Turn to one another. Start from the scratch if possible. Start having that conversation. I mean, start with a light quiz, like, what food do you enjoy?
Okay.
You know, what's your favorite color nowadays? because it may have changed from when you guys were dating, you know. Just start with such light. What do you like to do? Okay, that long-term dream you guys had and put aside because you couldn't do it because the kids were in the way. Revive it. Go out and do it. Go on that holiday. Go on road trips. You know, do things together. Communicate more. You know, so that definitely pulls you two together. And also seek support from people that have experienced this sort of life before, people that they've experienced this emptiness syndrome. You know, seek support from them, talk to them more. Support system for me is good. It's really good. Talk to therapists if you need to. Doesn't mean you're crazy or anything. I know people I know people think, you know, when you're talking to therapists or marriage counselors, it means you're crazy. No, sometimes you just need that support to navigate your love life all over again. It never gets old. You know, you can always revive it. Communication.
Do you think this kind of conversation is big enough for you to seek marriage counseling?
Why not? Because counseling is just advice. It's nothing more than advice. It's like you're going to Palm Grove, for example. You miss your way. You ask somebody that knows the way. Please, somebody that probably sells along the road, you know, he knows the way. How can I get there? And they guide you to the place, and you get to your destination. If you're doing it on your own, you're looking, okay, by myself, I need to get to Palm Grove. You miss your way 1,000 times over. You may eventually get there, but at that point, you may be worn out, and there'll be nothing left. So you just going straight to that person that knows the way to Palm Grove saves you a lot of heartaches, saves you a lot of financial troubles, saves you a lot of stress, and you get to Palm Grove in no time.
Okay. I mean, a lot of people, like you said earlier, people do not see the essence of counseling or therapy because, you know, it makes you feel like, maybe I'm crazy, or maybe somebody will see me and think that something's up with me and all of that. But yeah, if you put it that way, that sometimes you just need guidance or some form of direction to put your life in order. And so, you know, we were mentioning about parents that when children comes, it switches for them. So, is it possible that you are able to keep your romance alive even when you have children?
It is possible. It's a decision you take. Like, nothing is going to come in between. But yes, it's life, and it throws all sorts at you, doesn't it? There are times you feel like, oh, you wake up and you're angry at your partner for no reason at all. The person hasn't done anything, but it's just the stress you feel. And you need to take it out on someone. Your partner is always the best. Sorry, excuse me. But your partner is, we all take our emotions out on those we love the most, yeah? So they're just there to pick up everything. So you can take that decision. You can take that decision to consciously keep your relationship fire alive. You know, you need the support of family, you need the support of friends to watch the kids while you guys just take a weekend away. You don't even need to travel out of the country. You don't need to travel out of the city. Just go somewhere where it's just you two. You know, just have somebody else prepare your meals. Just eat, just drink, just
that's
chat.
fancy.
Exactly. You know, just chat. You know, you just have to, it's a decision you need to take. But we're parents and life throws all sorts at us. We tend to forget these things. And we just live each day as it comes. But in the end, I think we should take that conscious decisions to spice up our marriages, spice up our relationships, and always have this in view that in the end, the kids will leave and we'll be left by ourselves. So we have to keep that friendship alive between partners. Yeah.
I have this question for you from the very first case study that we took this morning about the woman that her children, 4 of her kids have left her and all of that too. Okay. It's, you know, in that particular story, she thought that she would, you know, never find, you know, love and peace and all of these things because her children had gone. In fact, her last child is a teenager and also had to travel. And the thing is, they left the place that she was. They traveled to different places. One is in Oxford, the other is in Wales, you know, different parts and all of that. But there was this particular one. she said, there's a last line that she gave that I'm going to read. It says, home for them is not where that is. It's where they keep their junk.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because, you know, she was explaining that at the point that she has gotten to, all that is left are just the things for the children, their clothes, their bags, and all of those things. What do you think?
That is it. That is what we should realize, that these people we're bringing into this world, they grow up and become their own person. And what we see as treasure may not be treasure to them. They grow up and form their own personalities. They grow up and form whatever it is they call their own treasure.
Okay.
Yeah, as sad as it sounds, but that is it. So we also have to respect that. So that is why when we're raising our children, we need to also plan ahead, look ahead for our future. What happens when the kids leave the house? What do I do with myself? You know, so we have to engage ourselves in, we have to find something to do. Business, career, whatever. It may be difficult, it may be tough juggling all of it at the same time. But I think it's tougher where you have no skills whatsoever and you're now older, the kids are out of the house and you want to get into work and you have not built anything on top of your pre-marriage life. I'm talking about professionally, for example. You haven't built anything on top of that brick since you started having children. So it's going to be more difficult picking up from pre-marriage, you know, from that life when the kids now leave the house. So that's why as we go along, it's better we just have in view, at the back of our minds, that the kids will grow up and they'll leave. That is us preparing. They'll leave one day. So while the kids are here, I better be doing something part-time. So when they leave, I can now be a master at what I'm doing, keep myself occupied with what I'm doing, just as a means to keep me going. So when the kids are there, they're living their own lives, they're forming their own homes, they're building their own homes, they're getting partners in.
Yeah.
So she's definitely right, yeah, but we have to prepare our minds. Our stuff cannot be their stuff. They would create their own stuff. It's heartbreaking. It's the sudden realization, you know, we want our kids to be a certain way, probably to carry on the family tradition, but kids are kids, or children are children. They develop their own along the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that before I let you go this morning, because I'm learning a whole lot, and we'll probably have to ask you to come back one time just to have these conversations again. Now, Ade was sharing a story about his grandmother. She is older now, and then of course her children now have children. Children's children are now having children, which means that over time everybody is living their own life, but then there is her trying to also live her life. But then she's old. That it means that movement would be minimal, and you know, things would not be as it used to be. What can be done? Because now I realize that grandparents sometimes, especially grandparents that are very educated, they live their own lives. So they are often, I don't want to use the word neglected, because everyone is living their lives too and focusing. There's a hustle and bustle of trying to make sure that my family's okay and everything. It's not like, and you know, for people that are very educated, they have their own. They have made so much money, or at least enough money to cater for themselves, or they have pension that is catering for them, so they don't need anything from them. But then there is no affection per se that is shown to them or given to them. What can be done in that situation?
It's how we raise our children, isn't it? It's how we raise our children. We have to remind them that these are grandmas, these are mothers, you know, and we need to remind them, or just raise them in such a way that they feel certain affection towards grandma. You know, so there are times we could organize family reunions, we could organize trips with grandma, you know, invite grandma to our house, that sort of thing. So it's building the bond between them and their grandmother, you know. So when you have all of those things in place, you see, there would be situations, there will be times where these children will take turns in visiting grandma, you know, take turns in taking grandma out for a walk and all of that. Just grandma wouldn't be so lonely, grandma wouldn't be so isolated if we raise our children to form this bond with grandma, you know, so that's what I see in
Would it
that
be a
one.
total bad thing if grandma comes to live with us?
But there's a lot going on nowadays. People are not the way they used to be anymore. So people are building their lives around, oh, it's my space. I enjoy my space. I like my space. For personally, I wouldn't mind, but there are people that would mind. So there are organizations nowadays that organize day outings for aged people. So you've got lots of grandmas and grandpas going out for a picnic and all of that. So if you could also connect with such organizations as a means to keep grandma busy as well, encourage grandma to take short walks, you know, go out for fresh air, come back, you know. It depends on how old grandma is. Grandma can still get stuff done. You know, she can have her entertainment going. She could learn to, well, knitting is something that I don't want to be stereotypical, but
I understand.
knitting is something you can learn new skills as well as, you know, that sort of thing. So the internet is a good means nowadays. So it's at everybody's fingertip. You know, the things, lots of things grandma can do so she will not feel isolated. But at the core of it is to raise our children to love grandma and to spend time with grandma, because they'll be old one day. You
And
know?
they would need love
And
too.
they'll need love and attention. They'll need that compassion. They'll need that they'll need that company as well. So I think what we should do is to have this orientation. Grandma was like you at some point, you know, so you're still going to be like her at some point. So encourage that togetherness.
Dr. Kyra, thank you so much
Thank you
for
so much
this
for having
conversation
me.
this morning. It has been an insightful and enlightening one. Thank you for letting us draw from your wealth of knowledge.